Well, I knew my grandmother, Mary Bowers, and that was my grandfather. And from what I understand, she divorced him, and the reason was because my grandmother was a very giving type person, as all the Indians are. But I mean, he was a mixture. He wasn't 100% Indian, so he wasn't really, didn't have all of these things born into him. And she said that some people had came and brought her some fresh salmon. And every time you had guests that came to call, which they did, they never left without you giving them something to eat, preparing them food from the very beginning. You just didn't open a can. So she told her guests to stay, that everything was in their favor because she had some fresh salmon to give them. She went looking for the fresh salmon and it was gone, and she never found it. So she had to apologize to her company and just make do what she had. And when they left, my grandfather came out with the salmon and wanted for her to cook him some. He had hid the salmon. So he didn't want to share the salmon with the company, and so this is the reason for the divorce. She divorced him immediately. She said that she would not be married to somebody who didn't, wasn't like her. And then she married again. She married a fellow by the name of Harris, and he was quite educated. He was an Indian from Alaska. And he went to all the boarding schools, including the one in Nebraska where Jim Thorpe went to school, Haskell. Walter Harris went to Haskell. And it was an Indian boarding school, and Jim Thorpe was his roommate. And Walter Harris was very educated. And in my conversations with him, he told me that Jim Thorpe would never sleep on the bed. He would always sleep on the floor. And how he met my grandmother, I don't know, but they were married. And he was the one that brought prosperity to her allotted land. He's the one that showed her how to plant all the fruit trees that you see there now. And try to make it more modern and better for her. But again, she had problems. She said that, she was always very prosperous. She was raising a lot of, she raised cows and milked them, and she had raised a lot of pigs. She never ate any of them herself. And one time she went to Lapway to visit her daughter that was there. And while she was gone, he decided to sell all the pigs and go to town and really play with the money. So that was how she divorced him. And then she married Frank LeClaire, who was a resident from here. And all I can remember that then. They were married, but he smoked cigarettes. So she would never let him smoke in her house. He had to sit out in the woodshed and do his smoking. But they were still married when she met her tragedy and died because it was during a real bad snowstorm and she got lost outside. She didn't have her glasses on. On his property they were living, and the storm just engulfed her, and she was underneath the snow for about a week, and the man they call Cyrus James right now was the one that found her. They had everybody from Painfield, everybody from Painfield and everywhere came to search for her, because it was one of the winters, I think, like you had here at the end of 1990. My grandmother was uneducated as far as book learning goes. She never went to school, but she was very, very intelligent in her ways.